And now for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing. That's right. We're brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. And I'm Robert Rose. And welcome to episode number 406 for Friday, December 15th, 2023. And with me, as always, as he always is, my friend, my colleague, and a guy who definitely thinks Kadarius Toney was offsides, Mr. Joe Polizzi. Like that?
I have never seen Patrick Mahomes be so upset.
He was mad. He was real really mad.
And I don't know.
The guy was offsides. I mean, that's just.
He was offsides. His whole foot was offsides.
He's offsides. I mean,
they just never called it before. The bigger problem.
They have called it. They called it on my team. They called it on the Cowboys.
Well, it was This year they've called it 11 times. Last year they called it twice, and then they never called it in all of the 2010s or something like that. So this is a new thing that they're focusing on. The challenge is Kadarius Toney's lined up. So plays for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's lined up, and his foot is basically offsides immediately. Yes. And then on that play, Patrick Mahomes throws to Kelsey going down, and then Kelsey does this beautiful lateral pass. And they score a touchdown. It was one of the greatest plays I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And then it had to come back. But Toney didn't, I didn't know you could do this. I was learning this afterwards. When you line up offsides, you can ask the umpire, the ref that's right there, am I offsides? And they will tell you. Yes, that's right. No. He didn't do it. So it's his own fault.
That is correct. That is correct. And then there's a bunch of people I see in the feeds are saying, well, why didn't they just blow the play dead? It's like, well, no. Because they don't know how the play is going to play out. It could have been an interception. And then if it was an interception, then the Bills could have declined that penalty. And there you go.
And that's where I don't like when they blow a play dead, if there's offsides, as long as, you don't have to do that unless they've touched the players, offensive, defensive, that touch each other, or the players coming in the line of sight of the quarterback and just going to destroy him. Then they'll call it dead. But other than that, keep playing that stuff because it's an opportunity for whoever wasn't offsides to do something.
Yeah.
But I digress. Our teams are doing well. They're doing well. Doing well. The Browns are doing well.
They're doing well. We celebrated today with our matching hats.
Yes, how do you like for the people who are listening? First of all, I have my Cleveland Browns hat on. You have your Dallas Cowboys hat on. So,
that's right.
Okay. We're again, apologies for those people who don't like us talking about the NFL.
We're going to talk about plenty of other things. So stay tuned, right?
Enough with the hate mail on the NFL stuff. This is our podcast. We can talk about what we want. We can. It's I think people think that it's for them.
But yes, for those who are out there and are actually can see, and we would encourage you to go to the YouTube channel, by the way, to see our beautiful mugs,
which is starting to take off. Yeah. This Old Marketing YouTube, we're feeling good about it. We've got a little strategy going.
We'll talk about that later in the show. We have a whole news segment on that particular thing. But Joe seems to be wearing a dead cat. He's got a dead cat on.
So I filled out. So we're as everyone knows now, we're part of the HubSpot Podcast Network, and they have a little link
audio destination for business professionals.
You can get a little tchotchke basket if you filled out the form. I filled out the form. Robert did not fill out the form. So yesterday I got this package from HubSpot, and I think it's a llama. I think I'm wearing a llama.
Sure.
And it's really
alpaca,
warm.
I think they call it. Yeah.
It's really soft and it's really warm. It's cold here in Cleveland right now, but I'm wearing a very warm climate country right now.
It looks like television snow is what it looks like. It looks like you can't quite get the right channel on your coat there.
But it says, I don't know if you can read that. It says creator.
Oh, thank God.
I am
identify.
I am a creator.
Yeah.
I am, And I think what's amazing is how do they find an animal that had creator already?
It's amazing how that actually happens.
They had to. They're. It's a very rare alpaca farm.
Yeah, that's right.
Sandusky, Ohio.
That's right. At least 14 anteaters died making that coat.
It's going to be one of those shows, folks. Strap in. So there we go. Anything else going on in your world?
It seems to be winding down. I mean, it seems to be that everybody is sort of the way the holidays fall this year. It's like everybody is sort of like, yep, checked out, done, tapping out for the year.
Early this year.
Really early this year. Right. So it's,
people don't want to work. Nobody wants to work.
They really don't this year.
I mean, I think that's a true statement. Like they just like, okay, you get to December on the calendar and you're like, okay, what can I do with my schedule so I don't have to work in December?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, I try and always architect my work so that I get done around the 19th or 20th so that I can basically take from the 20th through whatever the day end up being in New Year's sort of off. But this year it's literally this weekend, right? I mean, as we get to December 16th on the Saturday, it's going to be done for me. I mean, I'm going to have a couple of things to do next week, but it's everybody I think is just checking out.
Right. We have tons of, we have different groups of family coming in this year.
Oh, good for you.
We've got the Browns Bears game this Sunday. Then we've got Thursday night football. So we've got people coming in for that. It's going to get crazy. Our holidays are going to
get nuts in here.
It's going to get nuts, specifically because I'm not used to our football team being good at this time of the year.
Yeah.
And it makes everything a little bit
and the better. Games are much more meaningful, right? Exactly.
They are meaningful. No, not more meaningful. They have some meaning. So usually at this time of the year, there's no meaning to the games. There's no like, oh, did the Browns play today? I don't know. Is it Sunday? I don't know. We don't know. Now this year, we're like, oh yeah.
You not only know that they're playing, you know who they're playing, and you know what the ramifications are if they win or lose.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, hey, before we go on, I don't know. We want to get right to the news because we got a very jam-packed filled episode of great marketing news. But I wanted to mention, because you and I are both involved in this one, Content Entrepreneur Expo early bird pricing is going the way of the dodo at the end of this year. So December 31st is your last chance to get the cheap. You save like 50%.
Yeah.
If you sign up before the end of the year. You're speaking at CEX.
I've heard that is the rumor.
I'm hosting the event. It'll be in Cleveland, May 5th through 7th. I am super. We're putting up the speakers now. We've got our eyes on a special keynote as well that I think might come in. I can't say anything yet, but this is going to be an absolutely fabulous lineup. And I believe if things work out, you and I are going to do a live show
from there.
This old marketing.
Yeah.
From the opening, one of the receptions, the opening reception or the second. We don't know yet. But it's going to be a big deal.
Which means
go to CEX.events. CEX.events and sign up. So if you love us, you will come and see us in person. I think that makes sense.
If you love us.
That's how my train of thought works.
There it is.
If you really want to support
good.
Robert and Joe, you will come see us in person.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're going to have your book at the bookstore.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. That's wonderful. That's
of course. Yes.
Lovely.
We're really obviously, because Lulu, the leading self-publishing company in the world, purchased The Tilt and CEX last year.
Yeah.
We're putting a very strong focus on books and authors and that portion of the business model. So of course you are an author. So
that's what I've heard.
Going to be in the author bookstore. I am an author. My books will be there too. It's very exciting.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to it. I actually moved some things around in my schedule so that I was able to attend the whole thing.
Everyone needs, you don't need to go into detail, but just so everyone knows, you have to say no to a very special thing that you do every year. You go to a retreat, and you're not doing that this year because you've chosen to spend time with me.
You are the chosen one.
I think it's taken our friendship to the next level, actually, because you've taken that extra step forward. and said, yes, I want to be friends with Joe.
That is a scary, scary thing.
It really is scary. And I didn't know what to do with that when you told me. I'm like, oh,
no, the next thing you know, we'll be spooning. Yeah.
I didn't know if I should act different around you or we have to like trade gifts at Christmas. I don't know. It's a whole new thing.
Yeah. Yeah. As long as we don't have to cuddle, there will be no this old marketing spooning. Okay. All right. Okay.
See, it's already weird. You made it weird. What do we got this week?
We got a great show. We have a great show. We are going to open up and we'll talk a little bit about OpenAI because they're in the news about the news. We'll explain what we mean by that in just a moment. Then we will get into some Pew research. Pew has just come out with a new research study about teens and social media and media consumption and all of that. Some surprising results in there. And we'll learn and talk about podcasting. That's right. Everything that we knew about podcasting apparently is a lie, and some amazing new, wonderful research from our friend Tom Webster and the folks over at Sounds Profitable. And we'll then get into, a little bit of a question from our audience, and all of this football stuff will start to make a little more sense at that point. And then we'll get into rants and raves, and I'm going to have a very quick rave over an article in the Atlantic, and then I'm gonna. I guess it's a rant. I guess more than anything else, it's a piece of commentary about what's going on with ID and third-party cookies and programmatic advertising and where it stands right now with some acquisitions that have happened there. Yep. And then Joe's going to rant on Dropbox and basically are they treating our data with care and wonderfulfulness that we would expect?
It's going to be an all-out rant.
It's going to be a big rant.
I'm still upset.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed.
So you're going to want to hang for that.
You can just fast forward to the 50-some minute mark.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Although you can't do that. Did you notice because this show we record generally on Thursdays, just so people know.
That's right.
And then we send it out on LinkedIn at 8:00, both our times, 8:00 in the morning on Friday.
Yep.
So 8:00 Eastern and then 11:00 Eastern for you. And you can't, when it shows up at 8, you can't fast forward. Like you have to sit through it.
I know. Well, it's also weird because I will tell you this. It's also weird because what you also can't do is, so just so you know, if you're a creator in this space and you do this, the comments that come in during the show, you really can't look at them or comment on them until the show is done.
That's right.
Because
you can't see it until they. So let's say you're at the 9-minute mark and you make a comment on my LinkedIn page or your LinkedIn page, 9 minutes. You won't even see that comment come up until you're through that part of the episode.
Exactly. Which
so I think is wrong. Yeah. I think live is fine. Obviously, live is live. But then once it archives, you should be able to see all those at one time.
Right. And it's really hard. It makes it really hard to. So I wake up in the morning and I see that the show has started East Coast time, and I start seeing comments come in, and I'm like, oh, I could reply to that. Oh, I could reply to that. And then I'm like, no, you can't really. I mean, because by the time I get there, it's already out or it's not done or I have to watch it, and it's very hard. So
why did they do that?
I don't know.
I'm going to have to send in.
Well, probably they do it because truth be told, we're not doing what they intend us to do, right?
It's supposed to be live.
We're supposed to be live. Yeah, we're supposed to be live. And it's not again. I mean, as I understand it, we're not really breaking the rules, but we're not really it's not intended to do it that way. They intend for us to actually be live so that we're watching these comments come in and commenting in real time.
Well, we could make a decision on just putting up a shorter video of some of the stuff, which we started doing on YouTube. But if we want, I don't believe the length of this episode, if we just uploaded it, it wouldn't take it. It's too long for just I don't think you can upload an hour's worth of a video on LinkedIn right now. Can you?
I think you can.
Because we could just do that.
Yeah.
That would be another way to do it. And we just schedule a post with a video.
But you also don't get the nice algorithm bump, right? When you post it live, you don't.
Joe and Robert are this old marketing
starting live.
Right
yeah,
now.
Exactly. So it's just
always working that algorithm.
Always work the out. Well, we'll talk about that. We'll definitely talk about that when we talk about the podcasting and what's actually going on in the industry. But shall we begin?
Let's do this.
Let's jump into our first news story, which comes to us courtesy of Axios, and it is all about OpenAI. Fascinating story, kind of breaking news, really, as it comes through. And basically, the headline says OpenAI has struck a real-time news deal for its ChatGPT with Axel Springer, which is, you probably have never heard of Axel Springer, but Axel Springer is the parent company of a bunch of both German and U.S. media outlets. And the article opens up by saying ChatGPT parent OpenAI has struck a deal with Axel Springer, parent to a slew of German and U.S. media outlets. It's almost like I get this information from this story anyway. So to help provide the people with new ways to access quality real-time news content through our AI tools, said OpenAI COO Brad Lightcap. And really, the deal marks, as they say, a new milestone in the relationship between journalism and artificial intelligence firms, one that involves not just providing data to train ChatGPT models, but also using vetted journalism to bolster the accuracy of ChatGPT's responses. It also marks the first time that OpenAI has detailed plans for ChatGPT to provide attribution to news publishers in its responses. The two firms said that the new arrangement has explicitly valued the publisher's role in contributing to OpenAI's products and marks a significant step in both firms' commitment to creating new financial opportunities that support a sustainable future for journalism. And basically, it will be the German outlets will be Bild and Welt, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing those names because I'm not doing my German accent. And then American outlets will be Politico and Business Insider, which God help us for the Business Insider content. But anyway,
you're not a BI fan.
I am not a BI fan. Politico is good. Politico is a really good publication. BI, not so much. Anyway, it's fascinating. I mean, I have a take on this, but what do you think, being in the world of publishing and news and all of that for so many years? What's your take on this?
Well, we've talked about this before. It eerily reminds me of the time when I was at Penton Media and the Google executives came into the Penton office. And Penton Media, at that time, was the largest independent B2B company in the United States, in North America. So it was a big deal. So Google was coming in to work out a spidering deal so they could access all of Penton's content. And their publishers some were all for it because they said, findability, this is the next big thing. And some other ones were, well, why are we going to give all this information to Google? And now Google is one of the most powerful companies on the planet. It seems a little bit like that because of the fact that, and we've talked about it, I think last week, how many more people are using ChatGPT as a search engine?
Yeah,
is where they get their information. Like, we talk a lot about ChatGPT of content creation and storytelling and those types of things, and a replacement for content creation and writing duties, and also art as well with DALL-E 3. But this is a really important move to say, hey, if people are using this as a search engine, we need immediate, timely news. And right now, the language model it's built on does not, go to end of 21 or something like that?
It's now integrated with Bing search, so it's pretty up to date, and you can actually see it when you do a question that wants something from the current news or the current topical. It actually says going out to, I mean, this is Microsoft sort of, putting their thumb on the scale a little bit, but with what's going on with their investment and integration. But basically now it will tell you, going to Bing search for the answer to this.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be quite a bit of FOMO with publishers that want to have this type of an Axel Springer deal. I think this is the first. Axel Springer, one of the most influential publishers on the planet, with the brands you mentioned and more than that.
Really? Really? All right. Really?
What do you think? You don't agree with this? You think
I don't know that they're the most influential, one of the most influential publishers on the planet. I mean,
I believe they are. I believe. Should we look up all the amazing brands that Axel Springer has? Do you have a problem with Axel Springer?
I don't.
You have a beef? Or you have a beef with the Spring?
Is that
like
what the kid? That's what the kids call it these days. Like a beef.
Is Axel Springer sus?
Beefing with Axel Springer. Yeah. No. I mean, notwithstanding the sort of meta stature of Axel Springer, I think this is a very forward leaning idea here. And we talked on the show, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, about how companies like Disney and CNN and others were actually blocking the OpenAI's bot to actually pull in and use for training data, their news data. And the attitude of those news organizations at the time, still probably today, was we don't want them, we want to get paid. And this article, by the way, mentions this, right? That other publishers have said, hey, we want to get paid for this, because they're still beefing, as it were, with Google and Facebook about the use of their news and information and data without any remuneration. So to me, though, we talked about this on the show, that was short-sighted in the sense that, I mean, it's kind of you're caught in a bit of a sticky wicket, as it were, between the idea of getting paid for it versus actually having your information be part of the solution. And I think this is a deal that basically gets to what the news outlets want, which is attribution and credit for what they're creating, but also provides it in a way that makes it really easy for ChatGPT, in this particular case, to use that information to bolster its accuracy. So it's a win-win, I think, for both organizations. We'll see how it actually plays out in terms of the way things are, attributed and
if they attribute it, it's a win. It's a temporary win for the Axel Springers of the world. But the way that it seems to be moving, or the way that I think it will go, is that there'll be no attribution. There'll just be whatever content is spewed out of ChatGPT or whatever it's called in the future.
I think they'll
but
keep
it's different. It's different for news versus a company. Like, I mean, if you listen to our good friend Marcus Sheridan talk about this type of thing, he's like, hey, if you want to be found on ChatGPT, you have to put out amazing content in the world that is in these large language models, so that if somebody asks ChatGPT about you, you're there, or asks about the top solutions or top products, you better be there, but because you have to create great content to make sure you're there. If you want to get paid on your content, I don't see a way to do that unless you're getting this direct kind of payment, which I'm under the assumption that that's what this is, right? Are they getting paid? They are.
It does not say that. I don't think they are. I don't think they're getting paid for this. I mean, there may be some money going back and forth on this, but just for the work that needs to get done to pull this in and, all of those kinds of things. But there's certainly, at least the news reporting isn't saying such, that there's any sort of royalty and or licensing of the content that's going on here. So the deal very much looks like, hey, you get access to our fantastic, apparently, according to you, world-class cutting journalism. And in exchange, we get attribution when you use this reference material for, answering questions. And so I still think it was a good deal. Even if there's no money involved here. I mean, the news does say that their financial deals were not disclosed, and there may be some money that changes hands again for the but that doesn't seem like it's going to be any sort of long-term payment options. But I still think it's a win-win, because I think they'll keep So one of my predictions for next year was sourcing is going to become the thing, right? Sourcing, the source of information will become a true differentiator, which is why brands need to lean into subject matter expertise and thought leadership and all the things you just talked about, and become the source of those interesting things. And I totally hear you on the free versus, things like news, right? Where news is already commoditized, right? News is basically out there, right? It happens. And so the question isn't with news, what is it that you're providing that it's really just about accuracy and timeliness. And then insight into the news is something that you could see them protecting, right? In other words, opinions, editorials, points of view, feature articles. I could totally see that being protected from a ChatGPT, so that you do need to go to that source. And so one feeds the other, right? In other words, if I'm the New York Times, let's say, or any of these news outlets, it's like I give you the news so that you trust me in a free way. You trust me so that you come to me when I say, hey, I've got something really insightful for you that you can't get anywhere else. Well, now I've already built that trust with that audience, and I'm going to be much more, this is content marketing. I mean, it's
it's like the purpose of New York Times free newsletter.
That's right.
The purpose of that newsletter is for you to sign up and become a paid subscriber, because you get so frustrated when you click on these things, and then finally you acquiesce and say, okay, I'll pay you so I can see my 3 articles a month or whatever the case is.
That's exactly right.
Or I can just say, I'll just headline read like I normally do.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But I don't know. I agree with what you're saying, but I look at it and I'm nervous because I saw what happened to a lot of publishers as Google became Google.
I don't disagree with that at all. I mean,
it could go horribly wrong.
This is definitely, choosing. This is going to be a weird metaphor, but it's the one that's coming to mind. But it's like choosing to feed the bull that's walking through your china shop, right? It's like they whether or not you feed them, they could still go rogue and break everything. But you kind of want to make sure that you keep them calm and keep them, it's like, I understand that this isn't a deal necessarily that everybody's eager about, but it's the reality of where things are right now. So
I think isn't it more like if the empire comes to your planet, do you fight it? Or do you just say, hey, we're going to get along, and this is the new reality that we have to live with? That's right. That's
right. We're living under Palpatine's rule. There it is.
I think
OpenAI is Palpatine in that scenario.
Sam Palpatine.
Correct? Yeah.
Is that what? Yeah. Is that what it is?
That's Altman Palpatine. Yeah. Sam Palpatine. There we go.
So, I think it's Sam Palpatine.
All right. Well, speaking of Sam Palpatine, we should. I don't know how that works.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense.
It makes me chuckle. I don't know why.
Sam Palpatine.
Yeah.
This is my brother. This is my brother Sam Palpatine. He's runs some empire thing. All right. Let's open up. Hey, let's open up others' wallets and do the thing that Elon hates to do, which is actually give our sponsors a big bucket of love, shall we? Hey, did you know that HubSpot just launched an AI chatbot that helps you build awesome campaigns at scale with just a few prompts? Yeah, it's called Campaign Assistant, and it's a totally free-to-use AI tool that will transform the way you build marketing campaigns at scale. And the best part? Well, the best part is it works seamlessly with all of HubSpot's marketing and sales tools to scale your output across email, social, and more. So AI your way to the most effective campaigns yet at HubSpot.com/campaign-assistant. Can I tell you about a great podcast? It's called Inclusion in Marketing, and it's hosted by Sonia Thompson and brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Inclusion in Marketing digs into important topics like belonging, customer experience, diversity, and how you can practice inclusive marketing authentically. One of the more awesome recent episodes featured a cool exploration into the meaning of belonging, all related to Beyoncé's Renaissance World Tour. Yeah, it was really interesting. So go find it and follow it. You'll find the Inclusion in Marketing podcast wherever you follow your favorite pods. Let me tell you about StreamYard. Yeah, StreamYard. It's the easiest way to create content, and it's right in your browser. You can multi-stream to your social media platforms, host a weekly show with special guests, create webinars, record podcasts with local recordings, create videos, and so much more. I mean, you might even start a show with your friend, and 10 years later, here you are still doing the same darn thing. That's right, StreamYard makes it simple to get professional and polished content every single time. Joe and I have been using StreamYard for This Old Marketing and the YouTube channel, as well as live streaming to LinkedIn. We never knew how easy it could actually be. Just go to StreamYard.com/thetilt and receive a lifetime, that's right, a lifetime discount.
I always want to wait. I have to, like, I could cut that off early, but I have to wait for the end. It's by the way, I think a couple things. Shout out to StreamYard. They signed on for a whole nother year of This Old Marketing.
They're the best.
You're gonna, well, and we'll do another. I know Robert will do another amazing ad. You will. It's but I'm so thankful to them. And the other thing is, they had such a good year in 23. I think it was because of us.
Totally. I 100%.
I heard from two people just this week that signed on to StreamYard because of how we use it and how
that is exactly right.
That's what you get. That's what you get for aligning with
This Old Marketing
and the 11 loyal listeners.
Yeah.
that we have.
That's right.
No, we love it. We absolutely love it.
And if you align with This Old Marketing, you too can have a dead anteater jacket set to your home.
Anteater? Where'd you come up with that one? I thought it was alpaca.
Yeah,
I got it. I'm going to keep this on for the rest of the show. My alpaca, but it's getting warm. I'm starting to get a little bit heated.
Sometimes the jokes just write themselves, folks.
I don't really know what to do, but I'm gonna. The show must go on. These are the things we do to sacrifice ourselves.
That is true.
For this show.
That is true. All right, let's get to our next news story here, which is from the Pew Research Center. And basically, the headline is the name of their new report, which is Teens, Social Media, and Technology 2023. That article opens up by saying, despite negative headlines and growing concerns about social media's impact on youth, teens continue to use these platforms at high rates, with some describing their social media use as almost constant. That's according to this new Pew Research Center survey of U.S. teens. 1,453 13 to 17-year-olds were covered in this research across social media, internet use, and device ownership. A couple of the key findings here: YouTube continues to dominate. Roughly 9 in 10 say they use YouTube, making it the most widely used platform. That's going to come back when we talk about podcasting here in just a moment. Then TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram remain also popular among teens. The majorities of teens aged 13 to 17 say they use TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram primarily. For older teens ages 15 to 17, these shares are about 7 in 10. They're less likely to use Facebook. Duh, we got that. Twitter, well, no one's using Twitter. I love the fact that it's, again, Twitter, recently renamed X. They were a decade ago.
Stop it with that. It's just X.
It's just X, right? We got it. We get it.
We
right?
got it that you're upset about it. You're personally offended because Elon changed the name. We get it.
Yeah. As well as it's soon to be meaningless anyway. Anyway, teen site and app usage has changed little in the past year. The share of teens using these platforms has remained relatively stable since spring of 2022, when the last survey was done. The article goes on to in great detail about a number of the results here. Anything here stand out to you, or sort of you want to have a take on here?
The 25% who use social media all the time, like they're always on, is a tad bit disturbing. So that has doubled since 2014 and 15 when they did this survey. And I'm assuming Moore's Law, it'll speed up as that's going. So we could see half of that age bracket be constantly online. Yeah. And of course, you don't need Pew to tell us that. We can see it as we go out. I mean, you can, not that I want to be an old curmudgeon or anything, but you can absolutely see it.
Yeah.
Happening.
Just to clarify, this was the how much time are teens spending online, this chart, which is quite interesting, disturbing maybe, where the almost constantly number in 2014 and 2015 was 24%, several times a day was 56%, and about once a day was 12%. And then if you cut to now 2023, the almost constantly has jumped from 24% to 46%.
Oh, okay. Then I had it wrong. I underestimated that. So that's you're correct. So it's almost half.
Yeah, it's almost half. I mean, basically the about once a day or the several times a week have disappeared. Basically, that's where the growth has come.
You're just always connected.
You're just always on it. It's and this is we see this a lot with younger people, which is a little crazy. I mean, it gets to my, what's interesting, and I would love your take on this because of the content creator thing, which is all the data I'm seeing. This became my prediction for CMI, in terms of the evolution or de-evolution of what we would largely call social media is kind of dying, right? In other words, they're on it constantly, but the number of people, the gap between content consumers and content creators continues to widen. So I've not seen data on this recently, but let's say it was, it used to be 80% consumption, 20% creators creating. I think that's number is, probably.
Oh yeah, that's totally different.
95.5, right? Just we're consuming. We've all been TikToked, right? Basically, we're all consuming much more content on social media. The number of creators has really dropped off the cliff.
I would agree with that. And I would say that if you're just looking at content creation in general, content marketing approaches, that short form video is the gateway drug now.
Yeah.
I think that, whether you look at, you're on Facebook and you're looking at the reels there, you're on Instagram looking at reels.
Yep.
You're using TikTok, you've got YouTube shorts. If you are trying to break in and build an audience of any kind, it's through short form video. And you're right. I don't even know what to do with this, Robert, to be honest. I've had the opportunity to be around family this time of the year, so it's wonderful. And I've been around some teenagers, and I've asked. I'm very curious, right? I want to know which apps they're using. To your point about social interaction, it seems like Snapchat is like a messaging service.
That's right.
Very, very social. That's like how we use a text message. They don't call it text messaging, but that's how they message each other. That's where they do or WhatsApp, if you want to as well. Yep. But everything else in terms of time spent, just doing a straw poll, it's 6 to 10 hours a day.
Right. That's right.
I don't know what to do with that number. And I know how, I can see how it's being used. It's like you're binging on Netflix. You're going reel after reel after reel. I see my kids doing it as well. And it's a bit disturbing. And so there's that. There's just from a usage standpoint, it's disturbing even more. You've got that, and you and I talked about before the show. You've got this push into online gambling that everybody's, because you've got the ESPN bet thing and everything else. So you've got these two things that are really concerning that's going on right now. But from a business standpoint, you cannot deny that if you want to gain attention, you need to be looking at short form video.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like you look at this because the misinterpretation of like what I just said, right, which is that social media is just becoming media and it's becoming less social, and the creation versus consumption gap is widening, that means less creators are creating content. No, what it means is that the creators that are there creating content, it used to be, and maybe people have forgotten, but it used to be 2013, 2014, 2015. The goal of social media was to build your community, right? To have conversation, to have, to bring up topics and have people react and engage and share your stuff. And that's the stuff that's going away. In other words, as a business opportunity, either for a content creator or for a marketing team or whatever, the channels are just as viable. because you're creating stuff meant for consumption. It's the use case, the value that changes, right? So in other words, if your goal with Facebook or your goal with Threads or your goal with Instagram is to build conversation, build a community, have conversation, engagement, and create that sort of following that communicates with one another, you're probably not going to do very well. But if your goal is as a media distribution network, very much like how we've been using YouTube for the last 10 years, not as a social network, but rather as a media distribution platform, you'll do a lot better, right? So TikTok, YouTube, Threads, Instagram, Reels, all of those things become ways for us to get out. They're just media, organic, free in some cases, paid and promoted in others, but they're media distribution networks now. They're not social networks.
And I was talking with my son about this, and I can't remember. I think it was the movie Rounders, and then a Major League, Cleveland Indians at the time movie, and they were wanting to watch them, and I said, well, how'd that come about? Like, where'd you get it? It's like they were watching TikTok, and there were the little clips.
Yeah, and movie clips are huge.
Clips are huge, right? If you go to Reels right now, I mean, it's almost every other one, depending on your algorithm, right? And I do like movie clips, and it seems like for whatever reason, Instagram, Facebook thinks that I love Leonardo DiCaprio. So if half of these clips are Wolf of Wall Street and whatever else is going on with.
Now, wait a minute. Are you consuming content? We talked about this.
I've been on Facebook.
You've been on Reels. You're not doing the TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok.
Doing Reels.
I'm not on TikTok. This is this is the older person version of the gateway drug. It's
having consumed both, I would say it's equal. What you don't get on Reels, I find, are the very TikTok specific types of personalities, right? You definitely get the movie clips. You definitely get a lot of the sort of more popular meme sort of, viral stuff. It's almost like Reels is sort of a best of TikTok kind of thing. What I find. And so the more TikTok stuff is where I find you get sort of the very specific content creators who are doing, in some cases, very interesting things, in some cases, not so much. But yeah, I prefer, I'll put it this way, I prefer TikTok over to Reels.
By the way, did you see TikTok is doing the national advertisements? I've been seeing them during the pro games. I mean, about bringing people together and the whole thing. I can't.
And it's the biggest commerce platform this year, the fastest growing commerce platform this year.
Of course, TikTok shopping,
which we talked about last year.
If you're looking at, let's put it this way, maybe we've talked about this a little bit about the biggest competition in Netflix right now. It's TikTok.
It's the biggest competition to media, full stop.
To media, yeah. Absolutely. It's got to be. I mean, I don't even think we can call it competition. It's the leader. I think this is, if you look at the number of hours that people are spending on TikTok, it's got to be dwarfing what people spend on Netflix.
That's 100%. Yep. And getting their news from it, by the way. So speaking of news and the way that people get their news, it's becoming a search engine, right? So there are new trends now where young people are searching and getting their news from TikTok and or Reels. Then are getting it from their local news or their national news or any news outlet, right? So it's becoming sort of a source of everything for young people, and the short sort of video clips, which is, it brings up a whole other thing, right? Which is, well, how do we start looking at the way that these platforms are covering the news? Because what you're starting to see now, and we don't need to dive into this too deeply in this episode, but it would be worth talking about at some point, which is the misinformation and the unfortunate fake news that's getting created over things like what's going on right now in Gaza and what's going on in cultural issues and social and political issues, especially. There's so much that are going on that where those platforms are really, behind the eight ball when it comes to how do they execute any kind of editorial control over what's getting done there. And and not to put too fine a point on it, but this gets to your concern about TikTok that goes back, 2 years now, when we were talking about that perhaps it would get banned. And that seems like that conversation is like out the door now.
I first of all, hats off to TikTok. They have been doing they've been doing the best job from what I'm reading, because I'm not on the platform, but with detecting fake content and moderating.
They're doing a great job.
Much better than obviously X, even Meta. So they are creating this really trusted platform for news and information and whatnot. And my again, I'm bringing my son. I'm not going to name him because he doesn't want me to talk about him. But he said that TikTok take and being a Chinese owned company and having massive influence in the United States, he said that's my worst take. That's my worst take on everything. He says it's only great information. I said that's fine. You can believe that. That's exactly what they want you to believe.
I was just going to say that's exactly where they want you to.
I said if it was. Now we are getting our news and our information, number one, from a Chinese owned company. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying we need to acknowledge that this is happening.
That's right.
And people don't seem to care.
They don't. They really don't. And it seems to have just, we'll see if it comes back during the next year in the election cycle, but the people really just don't seem to care at all.
Yeah, they've done an impeccable job. Just they pulled back and kept real quiet. Now they've got this pro TikTok advertising program that seems to be working really, really well. And it's just growing like weeds.
Yeah.
Good for them. I'm not on it. I'm not joining it. You're not going to pull me in, Robert. I know you want me to. I know you want me to be part. I'm not drinking the grape juice.
The Reels is a gateway drug, my friend. It is.
I'm not doing
Reels.
I would rather get my misinformation from Mark Zuckerberg.
There you go. All right, fantastic. That's
it's not happening.
Ridiculously illogical, but let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move to our next story here, which is, speaking of lies, the headline from our friends at TechCrunch is "Everything you know about the podcast industry is a lie." We're going to pair this with a research study that has just come out from our friend and family, Tom Webster, and his wonderful company, Sounds Profitable. But first of all, this story opens up by saying, "It seems like the writing is on the soundproofed wall." Very proud of that. I'm sure this author is.
That's
the podcast boom. It's a t-shirt, right? The podcast boom is over, and this week's news is evidenced by Spotify laying off 17% of the company, its third round of layoffs this year, and canceled 2 highly acclaimed shows, including the winner of the Pulitzer Prize for audio reporting. But as a whole, the podcast industry didn't fail. It's just that Spotify took $1 billion swing and whiffed, and now podcasters have to navigate the fallout. The article goes on at some length, basically saying that really this sort of the rumors of podcast demise are basically overblown, that podcast companies are now much more focused on efficiency rather than growth. And so we're starting to see it become a mature business. And it basically ends up by saying, don't look at the podcasting industry as just Spotify. It's a whole lot of other things. And that gets us to the other article that we can cover here, which is this new research coming out of Sounds Profitable, our friend Tom Webster's company. And this is his research, it looks like, in particular, which basically covers off, it's called Sounds You Can See. And the way that the summary of the research, fantastic research, by the way, highly recommend to go get it and look at it, especially if you're in podcasting, is the power of video. The power that video has now, and specifically YouTube has, and we've just talked about YouTube, of course, and how it has really changed the manner in which consumers, and especially younger consumers, are consuming podcasts. We have specifically witnessed this because as we've moved to YouTube and video and the shorts that now appear in Reels and or the YouTube Shorts rather, then that we've seen really an increase in engagement, of listeners, and an increase in engagement of viewers specifically, and how they're consuming podcasts. So there's definitely a discussion to have here about rented land, but it's a fascinating trend in terms of where podcasting is going and how it's being consumed, especially by those that are younger, because as this one says, this article from Sounds Profitable says, it is more than just Spotify, though Spotify and YouTube seem to be sort of the primary drivers of the growth of podcasting in general. What did you have a specific take on this?
I don't believe that Spotify, I think that Spotify, we talk about right sizing the business. They're taking that business model and they're saying, how can we make it TikTok for audio?
Yeah, that's right.
So let's just simplify it. That's exactly what they're doing. They spent billions of dollars on content that now they look at it in hindsight and said, we didn't need to do that. We didn't need to do, okay, Joe Rogan's on the book. Great. Joe Rogan. You get a couple other ones. Joe Rogan's really the only one they've kept. They're getting rid of everybody else. And so if you believe that that's true, that Spotify is moving to that model because that's, you've got the consumer habits and they just want to get these clips and different people. And they're doing the same with audiobooks too. Actually, the New York Times, we can put that in the show notes, came out with an article on this as well about Spotify getting into the audiobook game and doing it on their subscription on an hour basis. So it's kind of like they're not going to necessarily download Robert Rose and Joe Polizzi's audiobook. They might get a clip of a certain section of our book that is in line with the algorithm that Spotify figures out. And I think the same thing, it's happening for podcasts and audiobooks and this type of content where, again, what's your goal? You mentioned this, like rented land. What is your goal here? Your goal, if you're going to make this move and you want to be part of this content mix, whether it's on your podcast or audiobook, is findability with a new audience.
Right. That's right.
So if you have that information going out to this new audience in a different format, and I believe it should be a different format than you would have for your main audience that gets the full thing or gets something different. I can see this with an audiobook. Maybe you'd put an audiobook on Spotify that's an abridged version or a different version than you would if somebody buys the whole thing from you directly from your site. You give them the whole thing or a different version. They get the VIP version.
Yep.
So those types of moves, just a little side note, I had a really good chat with a group of entrepreneurs about making different decisions for, they want to go into podcasting, they want to invest in search engine optimization, whatever. I said, before you do any of those things, you have to really figure out what your business goal is. And I think oftentimes what we do as content creators, we're like, oh, we're going to do a book. Oh, we're going to do a podcast. This is how you do it. No, that's not how you do it. You have to figure out what are we trying to do? What's our business goal? What do we want to see to have happen? What's the behavior change we want to see changed or maintained? And then you make the decision about, here's what should go on Spotify if we decide to be there. Here's what should go on YouTube if we decide to be here. And this is what goes on our website to our fans that we're building up and we want to be loyal to us. Here's that experience as well. And I think for somewhere in this, we forgot that we don't just have to throw up all of our content on all these sites.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. I mean, it is how do we piece this together? I would argue that for Spotify, this was a decision that they couldn't have known a priori, right?
Yes.
I mean, they this was at the time that they made those acquisitions, it was a smart business move.
I agree.
It turns out that it's not. Basically, it turns out that consumer behavior changed in a faster way than they anticipated, and ultimately those shows and things that they acquired became more costly than they were profitable. So, but I can't blame them for the acquisition. Like I can't look at it and go, that was a dumb move, because at the time everybody thought it was a very smart move, right? And I think it's the nature, and this gets to our conversation on YouTube Shorts and in Reels and TikTok and all of that. The nature of content consumption is changing as the nature of content supply is changing. And so they're reacting to that in real time. And also, by the way, trying to balance becoming a mature, efficient, profitable business, because they kind of need to, and figuring out where they can strip away all the sort of peripheral stuff that's not really serving their needs. And so that's the lesson here, is that to your excellent point, when we're thinking about where are we going to put our content, it is having a purpose for all of the different pieces that we have, right? Whether it's putting a small amount through, an ebook that we offer up on Amazon, which is we're giving away or charging a very small amount of money for, but its whole purpose is to draw people in terms of getting them to sign up for our thing or our service or our platform or our business or whatever it is. It becomes a piece of marketing. So is it the product, or is it marketing, or is it somewhere in between? And we just have that conscious decisions about what it is we're producing.
And what's amazing to me is you and I are still having the same meetings, whether it's with a large brand or an individual, where you say, what's the purpose of that podcast?
Yeah.
And they don't have an answer. You would be, this is $1 billion companies. No, just creating stuff and saying, yeah, everybody's doing podcasting now. We need to do it. I'm like,
here's the conversation. Here's the conversation we're having in 2023 still. When I say, what's the purpose of your website?
Yeah.
And they can't answer that question. Or they answer it this way. They say, the purpose of the website. Well, it's supposed to really showcase our products for leads, close business, provide loyalty, provide for extensions, have people evangelize, be our thought leadership platform. I mean, it's supposed to be everything, a floor wax and a dessert topping, right? That's an old reference. That's a really old reference.
It's okay.
But,
it is. It should be. You should have old references as an older person.
I should. Yeah, I should actually have those things. But anyway, it's one of those. It gets to trying to figure out what it is we're trying to do from a strategic channel perspective, and having a purpose for every channel. By the way, a purpose other than, our competitors are on it, or we feel like we need to be on it, right? That's the real key there. Speaking of old, by the way, did you see Olivia Rodrigo on Saturday Night Live?
No, I saw Adam Driver.
Adam Driver was Olivia.
I only looked at a few of the skits because I'm an Adam Driver fan.
She was amazing. She was really. She was. There's new music out there, and I love music, and I'm a musician, and I've been a music fan for my entire life, and I kind of pride myself on trying to keep up with new music, and finding it very hard to do so these days. By the way, there's so much great new music out there, but this was. I knew her stuff, but I didn't know her new stuff, and it was really good.
All
yeah,
right.
it's a quick rave. Yeah,
I enjoy new music as well. I will. Yeah, on your recommendation, I will take a listen.
Yeah, and she was funny. She was in one of the skits. She was also very funny. So
good. Yeah, I'll tell you what, Adam Driver is so good.
Adam Driver's the best.
There's nobody that commits themselves more to a role or a spot than Adam Driver. And
it's absolutely the truth. Amazing. That baby skit was, come on. That was the funniest thing I've seen. In a long time.
That's probably the one. If I was going to recommend watching the baby skit, it's when 4 minutes long.
To the little bear being gone. It's like, oh my God, that is, yeah. That is so good.
I believe, and I know, and apologies to Blair. Blair Smith has a wonderful question for us. I think we should probably hold that for next week.
Oh, well, it'll be perfect to hold for next week. Actually, it would be perfect. It would be a perfect question to hold for next week, and tease everybody with it.
So, Blair, you keep listening. We're gonna have your question on in the next 2 episodes.
Hopefully, So here's the spoiler kind of tease about that. Hopefully, this show we have addressed your question.
I wonder. Actually, without anybody knowing this, what the question is, I would like to hear from Blair to see if we have.
That's right.
I think we have. Except for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, that was kind of done purposely. That was done purposely.
No, it's all right. Not. We're not like that.
No. Petty and passive aggressive? Of course not. We would never be petty or passive aggressive about anything.
Those are two of my better qualities, to be honest.
Oh my God.
All right.
Petty and passive aggressive. That's the name of my new book. let's get to our rants and raves. That would be. It would be. It would be
my old man Robert.
It would be doing a long book. Yeah. All right, let's get to our rants and raves, shall we? Where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like Patrick Mahomes did after the Bills game, or basically after. Did you see him? Did you see it in midfield when he went up to Josh Allen? He was like, meh, 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 meh.
Look, I'm sorry, but that. I don't want to say I lost a lot of respect for Patrick Mahomes, but it was a legit foul.
It was a totally legit foul.
Like, why? How can you come on? How can you come
on? He let his emotion
in the press conference and say, "This is unfair. It's not how a game should end." It's your own player's fault.
That's right. That's the end of it, right?
That called the fight.
And by the way, the receivers for those who follow football will also note that the Kansas City Chiefs' receivers all year have been just ass. I mean, they've just not been good.
The reason why they're not the Kansas City Chiefs that they used to be is because they don't have Tyreek Hill.
That's right.
If they had Tyreek Hill, the Kansas City Chiefs would be like 12-3 or something like that.
That's
or whatever, the 12-2. So,
all right, let's get to our rants and raves. Do you want to go first, or shall I go first?
I'll go first, and I'll put this up on the board so people can see it. And again, if you're listening to this, you can find us at the This Old Marketing YouTube channel, which is fantastically new with content you haven't seen before.
No kidding.
At least in the format, that you know and love. I am boiling over this.
Okay,
this is a rant. I saw this on CNBC the other day. The title is "How to Stop Dropbox from Sharing Your Personal Files with OpenAI," and it goes through basically saying that Dropbox is sharing your personal files that you have uploaded to Dropbox with OpenAI. And I said, "There's no way that Dropbox would do that. That cannot be a thing." And I read the article and I go through it and I'm like, maybe it is a thing. So I go to my Dropbox file and I go into settings, and it has a third-party AI tab that I'd never seen before. Not that I'm spending all the time in my account settings for Dropbox, but I had not seen it before. And I go in there and it's turned on to share all my stuff with third-party AI providers. I'm like, you got to be kidding. So I turned it off, but it's probably too late. So that's not even corporate. And like, we have a lot of corporate content out there. I have a lot of presentations on there. I have a lot of videos on there that I share with people, that I share with my fans. I also have a lot of very personal information that I share. I have my hard drive.
Sure, of course, you have your whole
since I'm backing it up on there. And theoretically, I don't know if it has or not. Nobody knows, because you've given permission without giving permission for other people to scan that and become a part of this large language model. I don't even know where to go. I'm overheated in this alpaca uniform that I'm wearing. Upset. Am I showing you how visibly upset I am? I hope you can see it, that I'm upset about this. So anyways, I would say check your settings if you're on Dropbox.
Well, here's something. Of these things. So I'm reading this literally live as we record this. While you were talking, I went to my Dropbox. Now I have an enterprise. Do you pay the enterprise for Dropbox? Yeah,
I pay $10 a month or something like that for mine.
I'm paying more than that because I have a whole team.
Because you're more important.
Well, true. There's that as well. Here's what it says on mine. Third-party AI. Let team members use artificial intelligence so they can work faster in Dropbox. We only use technology partners we have vetted. Your organization's data is never used to train their internal models and is deleted from third-party servers within 30 days. So I don't know if that helps or not, but I don't know.
This is what the article said. This is from CNBC. It says, but, and then goes, even if you've opted out, any files shared with another person who is using Dropbox AI could be sent to OpenAI servers. Theoretically, getting around it says, according to Dropbox, only the content relevant to an explicit request or command is sent out to our third-party AI partners. It's already being sent. It's in their FAQ stuff. I'm just saying we got to question it.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a question. I mean, I'm reading their terms and conditions of this thing, right? Which says we only use third-party technology partners we have vetted. Their software will perform, which is going to be OpenAI, by the way. Their software will perform tasks with your information on our behalf, but we remain responsible for the handling of that information. Additionally, we won't let our third-party partners train their models on our user data without consent. And then, yeah,
So
anyway,
fair enough. It's fair enough.
Go,
I will pause. But the journalists that have reached out to Dropbox right now, this is the last couple of days, and have not received commentary back from Dropbox.
Yeah.
Including a question on clarifying whether customer data is never used to train models or if it is solely not used without consent.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's worth investigating for sure. 100% it's worth investigating and figuring out what's really going on here. Yeah.
So maybe I'm overreacting, which I tend to do.
Well, I don't know that you're overreacting, but it's certainly, well, let's put it this way. It hasn't been messaged well if this is the case, right? I mean, it's another case of this, very much like what Zoom went through, et cetera, where the legality versus the messaging of the, what's actually happening has been very poor. So at its very best, the communication sucks. At its very worst, they're doing something very untoward. So
okay, but anyway, so what I promise to do is for the next episode, I will stay on this because if I'm wrong, I will apologize. But
you don't have to apologize. It's just if you're mistaken and you've misinterpreted their very bad communication, it's not worth an apology. That's just saying, hey, we looked into it a little further and actually they just, we misinterpreted what they said very poorly. You know what I mean?
What I've done in the meantime is I turned that function off that you just talked about.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have the special Super Duty enterprise version like you do. I think you're getting preferential treatment.
Probably. Well, that's most often the case is that
I did want to mention, by the way, since we're running over and, we don't care anymore. Like we don't care how long we go. I did officially stop paying Twitter because I was doing the premium.
Oh yeah. Well, have you deleted your account yet?
I have not deleted the account. I put up the post that I'm no longer on. And
I deleted my account.
But you kept it going for a couple months and then deleted it.
I did, only just because I wanted to see, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have any sort of dangling participles, as it were. So I do also have a what I would call a sniper account. Like I have so that I can actually see tweets. I can actually. I
don't think I would delete the account though. I think I would delete the tweets. So I mean, we don't want to give any more air. If I don't want to give any more air to that, I just want to delete the tweets, and I want to make sure that nobody takes the name. I want to squat on that name.
Yeah, well, my name was, mine had the underscore.
Well, you didn't. You had Robert _Rose.
Yeah, who cares? I don't care. I don't care.
You did care. You did.
I did. Oh, I did care. There's no doubt about it.
Because at Robert Rose, I mean, there were threats.
Yeah,
I want to put it. There were issues.
There was pettiness. There was pettiness and passive aggressiveness for sure.
And you you got it on Instagram though. You're like
100%. I got it. There was no doubt about it. When Instagram came out, I was right on it.
And then you said to Robert Rose on X or Twitter at the time, and you said, "Hey, see, shoes on the other foot now. I got to see how you feel. You were Robert."
Yeah. Well, no, the sad thing about it is that the at Robert Rose on Twitter is tweeted like 1 time or 2 times or something. It's like, annoying. All right. Very quickly here.
Yes,
Let me very quickly. I have a quick rave. Just a very quick rave. So the Atlantic and Derek Thompson. So Derek Thompson, he spoke at Content Marketing World. And I became a huge fan of his writing, and because I wanted to learn about it before his keynote talk. Didn't really know Derek Thompson that much, but have come to love his stuff. and his podcast. He's got a great podcast. He wrote an article for The Atlantic, basically about anxiety and how it's called "How Anxiety Became Content." So just Google it, or we'll put it in the show notes, obviously. But it's a fantastic article. I'm not even going to spoil it for you. Just go read it. It's just fantastic reporting, fantastic research, thought leadership. It's just so thoughtful and wonderful. I just had to rave about it. So big ups to Derek Thompson for this particular article. My rant, to the extent it is one, is an article that's in Marketing Brew, very quietly under the covers. Magna, which is a media research firm that is owned by one of the big agencies, and OpenAP, which is sort of a consortium of media providers, Discovery and Warner Brothers and a bunch of others, where basically they have come to this deal where they're going to use, there's a data broker, Axiom, which of course everybody in the data world knows what Axiom does. And they have come to a deal where they will basically create a new platform for publishers and advertisers that they can basically get the data across TV. It's going to be primarily TV networks for addressable TV. But basically it's going to include NBC Universal and Fox and Paramount and Warner Brothers. And you can then buy and target audiences across those networks. And it is at its core classic programmatic advertising and data, sort of more surveillance-based, data-driven marketing. And I think it's one of those things where it's a little bit like OpenAI's sort of thing where we talked about where, you're feeding the bull in the china shop. It's like this sort of, grasp or firm grasp that the media companies as well as the data companies are holding on to this data-driven programmatic advertising model is just ruining the internet. It's just absolutely ruining. There was somebody one of our friends posted up a sort of Wall Street Journal, basically, which was fritzing out one day, and you could just see the code. You could see and the reason it was fritzing out was because of all the programmatic code that was going into serving up all the ads. Mm-hmm. So many sites for me have now just become unusable on mobile because of the different ways that the ads are getting served and targeted, and the programmatic code that goes into that makes these websites so heavy and so awful. And this is targeted toward TV, and it's one of those things where it's happening under the covers, and it's just yet another in the sort of trying to, it's so much like the record companies trying to grasp onto the sort of, data rights management stuff that they had for the music industry. And instead of solving the advertising problem, solving the first party data problem, we just continue to look at these third party data brokers and third party data acquisitions and mashups as sort of the answer. And it's just not the answer. And so I don't really have a point. I'm just a little frustrated with the whole thing. And I look at deals like this, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, again, this is where we're going with this. We can't solve the problem. We can't really address the issue. We have to just sort of make another deal where all of our data is getting combined into this thing to use it to target advertising to us. And it's a frustrating thing for those of us who really care about first party data, content, valuable experiences, and how it's getting used, and how people continue to monetize this stuff. So anyway,
you hated
small rant,
programmatic advertising from the start, and you continue to carry that 100%. Banner. I am, for one, impressed and proud that you've never given up sight on the goal to destroy programmatic advertising.
Yep.
And we'll have a little party. Little popcorn party, maybe.
Well, I will tell you that I'm not doing it nearly as well as if you want to follow somebody in this space. Dr. Augustine Fu, F-O-U, is doing he's doing yeoman's work in this space. Just amazing stuff in sort of exposing the weaknesses of it, the problems with it, and all of that. And it has nothing to do with his work, by the way. It has very little to do with sort of privacy issues. It's much more around effectiveness issues as well as fraud and sort of automation issues. So that's the net of that.
Very good. So
all right.
We have some special episodes coming up?
What do we do next week? Yes, next week we will have a special episode, our prediction episode. Then we'll have a special episode. We'll keep that under wraps just for now, for the very end of the year, while probably everybody's on break.
Maybe we should do a show about nothing.
Yeah,
a special episode and really make everyone upset.
Don't spoil it. We'll do a whole football show.
Oh my gosh, we'll have to put a disclaimer at the beginning to say, if you're not,
maybe that's the last one. We'll find out. We'll find out, and you'll find out, everybody, when you join us next week for our prediction show, right? But until we see you or hear you or listen to you next week, and remember, we'll have Blair's question next week. Just remember, everybody, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.